If you look at transit for a moment, right, mobility systems, metro ridership is down more than 90%. I live near the metro train line, and frankly, I look at a lot of empty trains going by every day. They've been on a reduced schedule, pretty much more like a weekend schedule for the last 3 or 4 months. With that, though, 90% of their business is gone, and I doubt seriously they have the ability to support their infrastructure, their employee base, and with all the bailout talk, very few people are talking about bailing out transit systems. So this is just one example right here in Chicago, one of the best, suburban rail networks in the country is at severe jeopardy, and I'm sure we're not alone. Uber, if you look at Uber, basically in 2020, they saw a dramatic decrease in their bookings. They had some significant problems with their EBITDA. This is their mobility side, right? And then on the other hand, their delivery side has actually done quite well. So what they've had to do is adjust their main focus at Uber from mostly a mobility solution to more of a delivery solution. Food delivery in particular has become a utility in the United States, where people literally pay their food delivery bills the same way they pay their electric bill, treating it as a given that in an era of COVID, you basically have to get your food delivered to you, and they take that as a cost of, almost like a cost of living within the United States. So acquisition of Postmates was announced July 2020. Uber Eats and Postmates will control 37% of the food delivery business. DoorDash has 45. Postmates was privately held, was looking to expand. Food delivery has, in my mind, become in America the utility that it already has been in China for some time. So that's both a good news, bad news story, I guess, of successful pivot for a very well-known brand. Back to some bad news stories, I guess. The Disney stories are in pretty bad shape. I think they just announced more than 20,000 people being laid off, mostly from their parks, mostly from, I believe it was California, but I think it also impacted Florida. Overall revenue crashed in Q3 alone by 42%. Parks are down 85, studio entertainment down 55, media networks down 2%, and overall income down 72% year over year. That's the bad news. The good news is they did have a pivot, if you will, an alternative model for going to market, Disney Plus, which is a streaming service, which I think they rolled out less than a year ago. 100 million subscribers compares to Netflix is at 193. So in less than a year, they've been able to get almost 50% of the Netflix penetration. Could easily be a $30 billion business for them by 2025. So obviously innovation, digital, cloud-based solutions were there pretty much at just the right place at the right time for Disney. Otherwise, they would have been even more devastated. A dramatically bad news story here across the board seems to be airlines. You can see the drop in screenings. This is daily screenings by TSA. Went from more than 2.5 million or thereabouts to less than 500,000 in the months of April and May, and basically peaking its head above 540,000 in June. It seems to have dropped to the floor and pretty much stayed there. That's not just domestic, it's international. In fact, international was worse than domestic. Lots of reasons for that, obviously the virus, but travel restrictions, fear, the dominance now of some of the platforms like Zoom. If I'm a controller and I'm controlling expenses in my organization, and we've got a proven platform for dealing with long distance sales calls and relationship building, and that platform is called Zoom, and it's virtually free and it's virtually risk-free, why wouldn't you use that? I can see business travel being impacted for many, many, many years to come. They're saying that it might take half a decade to restore to the 2019 levels air travel in this country and around the world. How do you get out of this? How do you innovate your way out of this problem, right? Well, there's some design solutions here. This isn't just a business model like the other discussions, right? This is more about how do you design a solution that makes people feel comfortable that and transmit the message that yes, we take this virus seriously. We know how to isolate. We know how to protect people on board aircraft. So here are some solutions from Priestman Goods Pure Skies, right? An August 2020 edition. Some post-COVID travel ideas here being conceptualized. So, dramatic shifts are happening in this industry by definition. Again, they have constrained options. They are, in essence, their backs are up against the wall. The last industry I'm going to talk about is VC. I deal with VC quite a bit. Venture capital has been historically a very, what would you call it? I guess a very hands-on, person-to-person, high touch as opposed to high-tech, endeavor. What they're going to be shifting to here is mostly a high-tech solution where matching VC funds with investment-grade startups is going to be mostly an analytics process instead of a face-to-face people process. And I think what you're going to find is that's going to be the way of the future for this entire industry. Let me just skip ahead to some lessons learned. What we're going to learn, and what in summary, I guess, for this whole talk, yesterday's hedge may be your main business tomorrow. So Uber is the example there with their food delivery. The second bullet, right? Pivoting to a whole new industry and application requires you to leverage your key skill set and works well when you align that with the natural or national interest. The example here might be Kodak, right? So Kodak backfilling a need in the pharmaceutical industry. Yesterday's annoyance may be tomorrow's main competitor. So that's the VC industry, where they looked at high-tech solutions as a distraction. Now it's literally a lifeline for them. Take control of your own distribution, leverage the trend towards direct-to-consumer or D2C, which is what Disney Plus is all about, right? So all those distribution models of going through various movie theaters and going through different cable channels, right? If they own the entire distribution network straight to the consumer, not only do they get those efficiencies, but they can seize a larger percentage of the eyeballs, right? Online options become mandatory during a pandemic. Telemedicine, Amazon, Postmates, right? When you can, utilize design language to communicate the new normal, which is what airlines are doing, right? Lastly, don't be afraid to innovate and disrupt. Persistence is the key. What I tell my startups, my student entrepreneurs, is that what entrepreneurs have that many others lack is a sense of persistence, a sense of resilience, a willingness to commit to an endeavor, even when others would say, hey, that's crazy. Yesterday's craziness is tomorrow's brilliance. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Okay, I think we have a question from Elsa.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. This is very interesting, and all the transformation and changes that are happening right now. So my question is around healthcare. So we know that essential workers are putting themselves out there. They're more vulnerable, and they're at the same time they're enabling the rest of us. The people that can work from home. And they're enabling this economy per se. Do you see healthcare, the industry and/or policy making? Do you see dramatic changes to protect those people, to make sure that our economy keeps going?
Yeah, unfortunately, I see a lot of changes, but not necessarily all to protect the worker. I think it's really to protect the balance sheet and the income statement. We see a lot of changes happening just in our health network here in the Chicago area, where certain hospitals are dedicated to COVID, other hospitals are dedicated to outpatient procedures. Some do admissions, some do not. Initially, the hospitals had significant trouble making money. And if they're not making money, they're not surviving. And so in some cases, you're seeing hospitals, especially regional ones, shutting down. I think telemedicine has become part of the solution that protects both the healthcare worker and the patient. It's also much more efficient. I mean, frankly, brutally honest, you can see more patients if they're all done remotely than if you have to literally walk from room to room. So there's a lot of these changes that are mutually beneficial, but I don't think the first goal is to protect the healthcare worker. I think the real first goal seems to be to protect the institutions themselves, because I hate to say it, they're at risk. They're at significant risk right now. But no, I agree with you. Healthcare workers are allowing us, in many ways, to have some sort of a semblance of a normal life.
Thank you.
Okay, so maybe I have a question here, Mark. What about in terms of sustainability? So like a lot of, for example, tech industries, tech companies are saying that, okay, remote workers can still stay remote. They don't have to go into the office until like summer of next year or so. But do you think that kind of model is going to be sustainable in the sense of, can it remain even longer as well, or?
Well, I think not only will it be sustainable, it'll be started to be cemented into the business model. And it's already happening where commercial real estate is being abandoned at a pretty high rate. Leases that were recently signed are being sublet. New leases are being deferred. A lot of companies are very hesitant to take on commercial real estate commitments when an obvious option of working from home has been proven time and time and time again. It's an expensive process to bring people into an office. There's another side benefit. They're finding that people, in many cases, are more productive working from home, which was counterintuitive. They thought there would be a productivity loss, but the actual result has been a productivity gain in many cases. People are just more efficient when they can tailor their work environment to meet their needs, as well as their work schedule to a large extent. So I think it's going to be, the future for some time to come. I'm not exactly sure what would bring people back to the office. I know at my university, a lot of workers are very hesitant to come back even one day a week. So will it be, time sharing? Will it be, hoteling in the office 1 or 2 days a week? That might be our future, is more of a time shared approach.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mark, for that wonderful afternoon keynote. I'd like to now take it over to Steve Michaels, who